What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark, Mac Movie Guy, and I'm your favorite blind film critic. And today we're going to talk about Oscars. Yesterday I did my best picture, and today I'm going to do the acting categories and directing and talk a little bit about that, my thoughts, who's in, who's out, what the hell's happening in this race, and all this before October, before spooky season, before I have just an onslaught. You have no idea how many horror movies I have for you. I'm going to put out so many videos in October. It's going to be insane. So get ready for that. But yeah, so these are Oscars. Let's kick it off with Best Actor. I'll do actor. A lot of people start with actress. I'm going to start with actor. I think they're both interesting. Actor and actress are really interesting this year, although they seem to also have front runners. Supporting actor is, for me, wide open. Like, that's anybody's game right now. But for actor, so I've got Adrian Brody, I think, is probably leading this for The Brutalist. I don't know that they'll give him a second trophy. A lot of people think that they will because he has... The thing is, it's the Nicolas Cage question. It's the fact that Nicolas Cage, he got an Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas. He made a lot of questionable movies. And then when he comes back around, do you give it to him? Do you give him that second Oscar? When they finally come back around for that second nomination, if their career, and Renee Zellweger kind of went through that too, between her two wins. It's like, not every film in there was great. I mean, she like stuff like Case 39. But they still gave it to her. So could Adrian Brody still get it? Yeah, but he's got some films in there that just really kind of fell off the radar. But I've heard he's excellent in The Brutalist, and it's basically the same kind of thing that he won for The Pianist. Same sort of film, World War II themed film. And that is, what he'll probably win for. So I think probably after that, in the number 2 spot, I still think Coleman Domingo is going to get nominated for Sing Sing. I mentioned this yesterday when I was talking about it for pitcher chances. I think it's chances. A24, I don't know what they're doing with it, but I think Coleman, this could be like Past Lives, but instead of getting a screenplay nomination, it ends up getting like pitcher and actor. That could be the package. It might also get supporting actor for Clarence Macklin, or it also could get, but I don't see pitcher and supporting actor. I see pitcher and actor. I think Coleman gets in. He's the bigger name. Clarence is sort of anyway. I think it could be maybe all of them get in if A24 gets this marketed well enough. It's not going to be a highly nominated film. They just kind of botched the whole process for the film. But I think there's enough goodwill for Coleman to get nominated 2 years in a row. Third, I've got Ray Fiennes for Conclave. I've got this also in pitcher. Everything I've heard about Ray Fiennes is that he carries the film, so of course I think he's going to get nominated. Fourth, I'm actually going to go with Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. I think all you have to do is get this to people. I know that they're worried about their campaign, about getting it out there for audiences. It's really about getting screeners, which is really just about uploading a link nowadays and sending it out. That's what it is. I watch screeners that are hosted on sites. So you don't even have to put mailers together. I mean, it helps, but I think of who he's playing, and I think sort of like in this day and age, regardless, I think Sebastian Stan has a really good chance of getting an Oscar nomination for The Apprentice. Even if the screeners just make it to people, even if it's the film's only nomination, regardless of, everybody's like, well, what about the results of the election? I don't know that that's going to matter. I don't think it does matter. When people play Donald Trump, they tend to get universal praise from Hollywood for doing so. So I can't imagine Sebastian Stan doesn't get a nomination for this. It feels weird because Sebastian Stan also feels like an actor who's not going to get an Oscar nomination. So this is probably his one and only shot at it. If it doesn't happen for him, it doesn't happen for him. But I can see people getting behind this. Absolutely. And then for my fifth place spot, I'm going with Timothy Chalamet for Complete Unknown. I think even if the film doesn't get a Best Picture, a lot of times we've seen people who replicate performances who are able to mimic another person's style. He's playing Bob Dylan. So I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility to say Timothy Chalamet doesn't get his second Oscar nomination this year for that. A couple other films, a couple other actors to watch out for. Daniel Craig for Queer. Part of the reason I didn't put him in here is because I don't think A24 can get 3 Best Actor nominations. I think that's a bit much, and they already have, in this category, they have Adrian Brody and Coleman Domingo. So I've heard the least impressive stuff about Daniel Craig, so I left him off the list. Paul Mescal for Gladiator 2. I think we just need to see that performance instead of it being like this conceptual thing that people have heard about. Is that going to happen for Joaquin? A lot of people were talking about, will he get 2 nominations for Joker? I think that film has fallen flat on its face. So yeah, I think, I don't know. There's some other things. I don't know what they're going to do with the latest TIFF acquisition from the Mike Flanagan film that won, and whether or not that's going to affect any of the acting races. Saturday Night's not going to get any nominations here. So I think this is pretty limited. I don't think Nickel Boys gets in here. I think this maybe is limited to Blitz has a lead child actor, and Blitz is not going to be nominated in a lead category here. Dune is not going to get any acting nominations. Anora doesn't have a male lead, has supporting characters. From what I understand, I think everybody's supporting in that film, and Mikey Madison is lead. So it's just the way that things are structured this year. I think this is a pretty easy way. Amelia Perez also doesn't have a lead actor. So some of the strongest films of the year just don't have lead actors in them. So it's like, where are the nominees coming from? So Wicked, they're not coming from Wicked. It's really hard to just kind of find. That's why the race is somewhat limited to just like a handful of actors. Like John David Washington for The Piano Lesson, I guess, is an outside shot. There are a couple people who you're like, yeah, we could talk about them, but I really think this is pretty much down to like 6 or 7 people at this point. So yeah. Moving on. Next category, Best Actress. I'm going with Angelina Jolie for Maria. I think she could easily win her second Oscar also, along with Adrian Brody. This could be a repeat year. Because I think below her, she's got Mikey Madison for Enora and Carla Sofia Gascon for Amelia Perez. Both of them would be very new talents, both trying to get in for 2 sort of wildly specific films that have content in them that's going to be polarizing to some people. Whereas Angelina Jolie is like, we haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. Although Pablo Larraín's films are not always widely accepted. I hated Kristen Stewart in Spencer. I thought she just whispered her way through that performance. So I'm interested to see what Angelina Jolie does here. Netflix is behind the film, so they're obviously going to push it, although they also have Carla Sofia Gascon. So we'll see what happens. But those 3, I think, are like locks. I think those are the 3 locks. So the next 2 spots, like, what are you going to do with those? I'm going with Amy Adams for Night Bitch. I think she might be the standalone nominee from her film. And from everything I've heard, she's great, even if the film doesn't go anywhere else. And this kind of feels like a year where a lot of people could get nominated for films that aren't even in Best Picture. Again, there are a lot of films. Conclave doesn't have a lead actress, so this is she benefits from things that just don't have lead actresses. Blitz doesn't have a lead actress, and then we have in 5th place. I'm taking a swing, and I want to say June Squibb for Thelma. I've heard the debate about, and I'm fully on the debate about studios, and I'm a little bit hesitant about Briarcliff with Behind the Apprentice, but I think because of who he's playing, if he wasn't playing that, if it was just Sebastian Stan in a buzzy film that was being no, it would not be. Which is how I feel about Hard Truths. And sadly, with Marianne Jean-Baptiste, I think Bleecker Street would just killed that film's chances. So I think she'll get like a BAFTA nomination out of that. But she's not going to get a major nomination. Um, so yeah, June Squibb. I think I can see Hollywood suddenly going behind her and being like this surprise thing. It was a performance that everybody liked. It's a performance that people will remember. I think critics groups are going to pick her up. I think she has a shot at an Indie Spirit nomination. She has a shot at actually staying in the conversation, even though people won't think of it immediately as being an Oscar performance. She's so old that it's like, how do you not nominate June Squibb at that point? I think she'll have people who vote for her. And I think just because of the nature of where the race is, she could slide in. I think she's easily got a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress in a Comedy coming her way, possibly even a win, um, because it's actually a comedy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think this could be one of the surprise nominations, and I want to get behind it early so that way I'm calling June Squibb. I called it. The Darkroom Boys were having a live thing, and I called it on that too. I was like, I want to call June Squibb as being. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to ride that to the end of Oscars and say June Squibb gets in. So a couple other things. Saoirse Ronan for The Outrun. I want to see her pick up more steam for this. I heard a lot of people out of Sundance originally when this film first dropped, they were not thinking about this for awards. They were like, no, that's not going to happen. And then now it's her lead actress thing because she is running and supporting for Blitz. So now everybody's like, well, of course she'll get in for The Outrun. It's like, wait a minute, you guys all changed your mind on this. What happened? So I want to actually see stuff happen to The Outrun before I even think about it. But yeah. Cynthia Erivo for Wicked is on my radar. I guess Marianne Jean-Baptiste to some extent. Tilda Swinton for Room Next Door. She's going lead. Sadly, so is Natasha Lyonne. That's not going to happen for her. She might have gotten in for supporting actress. Moving her to lead doesn't help her. It's not going to happen. So those are just some of the other lead performances. I should mention Demi Moore just because somebody's going to be like, what about Demi Moore? No, but okay, I'll mention her. Some people think she's going to get nominated for The Substance. Good luck with that. You let me know how that happens. Lupita Nyong'o had actual like SAG and Critics' Choice and stuff. Like, she had actual nominations behind her and still couldn't make it to the Oscars. So for us, they just don't like horror films. So, which is weird because Daniel Kaluuya got nominated for Get Out. So maybe it's just like an actress thing and not an actor thing. If Demi Moore was a man, she would be nominated. Supporting actor, pretty widely open at this point. It's funny how everybody was like, I was on that board too. I was like, Samuel Jackson's going to win, obviously, for The Pianist. And this has to be his. I mean, he's only been nominated one time for Pulp Fiction. That's insane. But apparently his performance is like nothing in that film. It's like a nothing performance. So he like fell completely out of everybody's radar. Jeremy Strong also for The Apprentice had a lot of buzz going into that, and then people were like, he's not really the takeaway from that. He's okay, but it's mostly Sebastian Stan. So this race has changed a lot. I still think Clarence Macklin gets in for Sing Sing. I still think that's happening. I think Guy Pearce has appeared for The Brutalist because he's never been nominated before, and I think that works in his favor. He's been around long enough. And there are performances of his. He's not always great. He did one of those shitty Liam Neeson movies. But he does have Memento. And I think if we could retroactively give nominations, I think he probably would get in for Memento. I think especially film Twitter would push him in. I think so there's a performance where you could go, yeah, I could see him getting nominated for that. So, I think he might actually get nominated for The Brutalist, surprisingly. I think A Real Pain is going to be around this Oscar season. Fox Searchlight is going to try to throw a lot of stuff at us. And Kieran Culkin is somebody who, coming out of Succession, has been getting a lot of attention and praise. He's been around for a while. I could see him getting nominated for Real Pain and that being the film's only nomination, or maybe that in screenplay. So I'm going to keep him in there just because I think people are going to watch Real Pain and maybe he's the takeaway. It also helps that he is basically a lead performance running a supporting category, so he has more screen time. I'm still on the Stanley Tucci train because I think Conclave is going to pick up a lot of nominations. So I think Stanley Tucci comes along with that. And I'm going to go ahead and jump on the Denzel Washington train for Gladiator 2 and say he gets in. for Gladiator 2. I've heard he's really good, and he's Denzel, and he's in supporting. So I think his chances are pretty high. As far as who else is in this race, I have no idea. This race is pretty wide open. It's constantly changing because people keep looking at performances and being like, no, not that. What I'd love to see is I've heard that there are a couple supporting actor performances in Honora, and if people can rally behind one, I feel like one performance could get in. Sort of like sort of like I did with Sing Sing. In the beginning, it was like, oh, could Paul Rassi get in? And then everyone was like, no, it's just Clarence Macklin. And then we've just accepted that. So if they could get behind like one Honora performance and say, oh, it's this guy, maybe then we could get like an Honora supporting performance. Because I've heard there's like a couple guys who are really good, but they can't figure out which one should actually get the nomination. John Lithgow for Conclave seems like he's not getting nearly. Stanley Tucci isn't getting that much praise, but Lithgow is somehow getting less praise. Had a piano lesson doesn't get anything, I don't think here. You know, yeah, this is just. I feel like this category is wide open. I've heard a little bit about Edward Norton for Complete Unknown, but I feel less secure in selecting him than I do Chalamet, sight unseen. Norton could sneak in this race, definitely. September 5th could get a nomination here. I feel like it's more prone to getting supporting nominations than it would be lead. So those are my thoughts on that. On supporting actor. Supporting actress is going to be Danielle Detweiler finally getting a nomination for The Piano Lesson. She won't win because I think this might be The Piano Lesson's only nomination, but she's owed a nomination for Till, and I think people realize that. People realize they fucked up, and they've heard nothing but that ever since they fucked up for Till. And now she apparently is the takeaway on The Piano Lesson, and it will be an Oscar contender that people will watch, and I think she'll be like the film's only nomination. Like last year, even though The Color Purple started peeling away, people still nominated Danielle Brooks. So, yeah, I think she's still in. We're going to get our two Amelia Perez girls, Zoe Saldana, and surprisingly, Selena Gomez is looking good for Amelia Perez. That's the kind of year we're living in, is Selena Gomez could get nominated for Amelia Perez. Shocking. I did not see that coming. I did not think we were in that kind of a year, but we are in. That is the year that we are in. I'm going to go ahead and predict Felicity Jones, although I would be okay with knocking her out if something changes. And so I like my top three. My bottom two are the ones that I'm. Felicity Jones, the problem that I have is, from what I've heard, she doesn't appear until after intermission in The Brutalist. So she's there for the first hour of the film. And there's always that possibility with people who are trying to consume a lot of films, especially people who get screeners, that they don't watch the whole thing. So if you leave at intermission, then you don't get her performance and you don't vote for her. That's the risk. So I don't feel great about her. And if somebody else emerges as a contender, I feel like I would take them. Like if it turns out, I'm really paying attention to Saoirse Ronan for Blitz. I've heard she doesn't have much to do, but I really want to know how people accept her performance, because I'd be willing to swap the two out. The other one that I'm on the fence about is Isabella Rossellini for Conclave. I think Conclave, again, is just going to get a bunch of nominations and just not win anything. And this could be one of them. But Isabella is basically in the same place as Anjou Ellis-Taylor for Nickel Boys. Both of them are barely in the film. They barely contribute, but either one of them can get nominated. The reason I picked Isabella is she's never been nominated, and that's her narrative. Anjou does have an Oscar nomination, and so there's less of a demand to get her a second one for a performance she's not going to win for. Let's be honest. She's not going to suddenly like surge to a win for her brief little performance in the Nickel Boys. Is there anybody else who could get in? I've heard people who think Carrie Coon has a better shot at getting a supporting actress nomination than Natasha Lyonne, and I'm like, please no. I hated her performance in His Three Daughters. I thought she was poorly directed. It felt she made the whole thing seem far more theatrical than it needed to be. I thought she was on a stage play and everybody else was in a movie. It was very I was very put off by her performance, and Her nomination would ruin probably the entire Academy Awards ceremony for me because it would be her first nomination. I'd be like, for that? Like, I'd be sitting there thinking the whole time, I'd be like, she's an excellent actress and everything else. I think I just count it as poor direction. She was given just the wrong cues. But some people are affected by the performance, and I don't understand that. Julianne Moore is just like nothing for the room next door. So yeah, I think these are probably the performances. We'll see. We'll see where everything lands. I'm really interested to see whether or not Queer could get a nomination for supporting actress, but not for anything else. Because I've heard that she's fantastic in Queer. The actress, I can't think of her name right now, but because I wasn't planning on thinking about it, but I've heard, the funny thing is, if you watch anybody who's seen Queer, like, talk about it, they're like, blah, 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 blah. But when we got to the scene, oh my God, Leslie Manville, like, unrecognizable, fantastic, bonkers performance. And I'm like, could she get the only nomination for Queer? It's possible. It is absolutely possible that Leslie Manville could get in for Queer and then not Daniel Craig. And I think that would be bizarre and hilarious. But yeah, so I'll track her and pay attention to that too as well. So for director, I'm gonna go with I forgot his name because he's new and it's French, but Amelia Perez, I think he'll get in. It's it's like a Spanish language musical that is being submitted by France. It takes place in Mexico. I don't know how do you not nominate that? I think Sean Baker finally will get in this year for Anora. I think he'll finally get his nomination. I'm sticking with Denis Villeneuve for Dune because I think it's an achievement of the highest technical value. So I think he gets in. He didn't get nominated for the first film. I think they're going to rectify that by nominating him for the second film. I'm going to wish predict and stick to the fact that if Gladiator is good enough, that enough people realize still that Ridley Scott has never won a directing Oscar and will try to push him into this race so that he can possibly, maybe get a nomination this year. And then my final slot goes to Brady Corbett for The Brutalist. So those are my 5 nominees. There isn't really a girl that's in contention this year. I'm sorry, there just isn't. It's people are trying to be. It's not a dude thing. It's just when you look at the films, it just didn't pan out this year. The films that are directed by the women are the ones that are hanging on the peripheral. You've got like Night Bitch by Marielle Heller. I can't think of the name of the girl that's directing The Substance, but they're not films that are going to get really that much attention. They may be like 1 nomination films, so they're not really films that are going to sweep through with female directors. So anybody else who could possibly get nominated? I suppose anybody else who has a film in the Best Picture race, technically. I'm holding out for, because I mentioned Seed of the Sacred Fig the other day. I think director for that would be possible if they're releasing it this year. But again, the international category is interesting, and I think that's why a lot of people have dropped Seed of the Sacred Fig. It's possible that Neon is holding the film until next year, so it could get an international nomination this year, and because of the way that it's being submitted, you don't actually have to release. It's the one category where you don't actually have to have a theatrical release stateside. In the calendar year, you can release later on. You don't have to, it's weird. Because you're being submitted by your country, so they just take your country's submission as long as you meet the requirements of not having a certain amount of English in the film. So it's Germany's submission, and I think it's going to get that, but it needs to actually be theatrically released in order to get director. But if it was, I would consider him a strong case for director. So yeah, that's basically it. So I'm gonna wrap that up, send it off. I don't think Edward Berger's gonna get nominated for Conclave, sadly. I think he could, but I just don't think he's going to. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.